Welcome, everyone. This one is promoting your anchor tenants. So let's just dig right in with, by the way, an anchor tenant is somebody who drags you down. It's someplace that you will go specifically out of your way for. So for instance, an anchor tenant in Orlando would be Disney World. An anchor tenant in your town might be a restaurant that we will drive an hour for because it is so good. And so this is about promoting the very best of what you have to offer, and to win, you must have at least one or two anchor tenants, whether it's a local museum, whether it's a trail, whether it's a lake, that's well known for fishing, whatever it is. You need to have an anchor tenant. It's what makes you worth a special trip. And then finally, think Orlando. There's 170 attractions there, but the big one is Disney World. And while we're there, we will also go to Universal Studios, SeaWorld, and many of the other attractions. So nearly every single city or town should promote their anchor tenants specifically. And they're generally businesses. Businesses are the primary attractions. Disney is a business, and so I think it's really important to do that. Here's 5 reasons why it's important to promote your anchor tenants. Number 1, success breeds success. So if somebody's worked really, really hard to create a great restaurant or a great, retail shop, then you want to promote them because success breeds success. Number 2, they will pull customers into neighboring shops. And I'm going to give you an example of that coming up. They make you worth a special trip. So promote them. And then you're providing help, not lists. We don't want a list of all your restaurants, a list of all your retail shops, a list of all your trails. We want help picking which restaurant should we frequent or go to, which retail shops are a must-see or must visit, and what would be your top trail. And I'm going to get more into this. We want help, not just a bunch of lists. The number one asked question at a front desk in a hotel is, where's a good place to eat? We've all said that. Where's a good place? And don't just hand me a list. And they should say, well, what kind of food are you interested in? And they say, well, we have our kids with us. We're interested in family and we like burgers. And then they can make recommendations. That's why you need a best of guide. Otherwise, what we're going to do is go right to TripAdvisor, one of the most visited websites in the world for travel. And I typed in restaurants in Spokane, Washington. There they are listed right there. It's helpful. Or we're going to go right to Google. Google's given TripAdvisor a run for the money. Here's the best restaurants in Spokane, Washington. There they all are on the map. I can pick one close to me. Or we're going to go to Yelp. And that's why you need to do this. We want them on your website for you to be helpful so we don't have to go somewhere else to make our decisions. And the 5th reason why you need to do that is they bring people back time and again, and they will tell their friends, oh my gosh, we had a great meal at this restaurant, and we went into this shop, which was so great. So let me just show you one, just so you get an idea. This is Bracebridge, Ontario. This is a rack brochure. So it's just 4-inch by 9-inch. It tells you when you open up where they're located. And here they are promoting those, and so I'm just going to quickly go through these, and you're seeing 2 panels at a time here. But this is what's so great about this, is you have this great brochure that promotes your very best ofs. Now, if they want to go beyond that, they can go to your website, and I'm going to show you examples of that. But they did a great job with this brochure. And in this case, they actually have it stapled. So it's actually opens like a little booklet, which I think is really cool. You see me looking at it right here. I think that's really nice. So that's one way to design it, but it fits in any rack holder. And so I'm going to give you how to develop your best stuff guide without politics killing it. So number 1, the size, 4 by 9 inches. It's a rack brochure. And I prefer an accordion fold. Stitching it like the one I just showed you for Bracebridge is very nice. It's a little more expensive, but this is an accordion fold. Notice how it unfolds and folds like an accordion. This way I can use it like a book looking like this, or I can flip it around and look this way, and I have all these best ofs right there for me. So that's what I prefer, and that's less expensive than having it stitched or stapled. And then, no more than 36 panels. Most of these that I'm showing you are like 10 to 12, maybe 14 panels, but you could do up to 36, but no less than 9. Say, well, I do a brochure because we have one restaurant and one trail and one retail shop. Probably not worth doing a best of guide. But if you have a lot of things to offer, help us narrow it down. And then number 2, include like 3 to 6 restaurants if you got them, retail shops. It might be 2 restaurants and 4 retail shops, and then maybe 6 top activities. And you could do, here's our top activity in the winter, in the spring, in the summer, in the fall. There's 4 of your 6 right there. Or attractions. Activities would be like hiking, walking, doing those kinds of things. Attractions might be a local museum, a wildlife park, you name it. And no lodging facilities, because we want them to hand them out, and they won't hand them out if they're competitors in there. And no chains or franchises. So that's number 2. Number 3, no more than 6 of each. Don't just say, well, we have 8 restaurants, so we might as well just put them all in there. That's not a best of guide. That's another list. And so, like restaurants, you could say, here's our best 2 family-friendly and cost-effective places to eat. Or you might have our best mid-price dining, or our best formal dining establishment, or here's our top picks, top 2 for breakfast, top 2 for lunch, top 2 for dinner. When it comes to activities like trails, you might do, here's our best trail for strollers or wheelchairs or small kids. It might be paved. It might be a little less strenuous. You could even do best trail for biking, best trail for hiking. That might be easy. You might even say, here's our moderate hiking trail, or you can even do, here's our extreme trail. So always promote your best stuff. And this is a way to break them up. But the thing is, we want help, not just lists. Always promote your best of. Now, we're not leaving anybody out. This is something you have to explain to people, because you can always say, if you like those 3 trails, go to our website and here are 3 more. Or if you like those 3 restaurants, go to our website and you'll find we actually have 15. We just gave you a teaser for our top 3. And I'm going to tell you how to get past the politics here. This is number 4. This is the most important of all. You're going to figure out which ones to promote based on criteria. Number 1, they need to be highly regarded by somebody other than themselves. So they might have 80% plus positive reviews on TripAdvisor, on Google, on Yelp, or written up in regional publications is a great place to eat or shop. So they need to be highly regarded right there. And so you can say, look, we're going by what Google and TripAdvisor said. We're not just making up our minds. What you're doing is getting rid of the politics in deciding who's in this. They should have good curb appeal. And by the way, you need to make up your own criteria. They had to be open year round might be one, or for you, maybe it's 6 months of the year, 5 months of the year. You can decide. They need to be open till 7 p.m. I've worked in many towns, and if we did that, there'd be nobody in the guide. But, for retail and museums and things, maybe they're open till at least 6 on Saturdays. You can use your own criteria, and they'd be open 6 days a week might be one. And this one's for sure. They need to be unique to you. No offense to Subway, McDonald's, and Tim Hortons. We can get those anywhere, but they need to be unique to you. But by creating criteria, what you're going to do is you're going to narrow that list down really quick. And when we talk about those positive reviews, here's where you're getting them. So it's not you just doing an arbitrary decision making, print reviews, best of reviews. And that's what's written up in magazines and stuff. And don't just say, we want you to vote for what you think is the best. we've seen that work, but sometimes politics gets in the way, and somebody will have a restaurant will have everybody vote for their restaurant, and it may not be that great of an experience. So I try to avoid that. And then finally, you must leave politics out of it. This is why I tell destination marketing organizations to get rid of memberships. And chambers of commerce really can't do this because their membership, well, you promoted them and not me, and I think I'm just as good as them. This is why you use that criteria. So let me show you. This is one that was done in Ottawa, Illinois. And they were one of the first ones. And each of these people, you see Cottage Tour, Taste of Louisiana. This is in Illinois. They each paid $400 to be in this. That's what it costs to print and produce it and distribute it. So they were asked to pay $400 in this. And then Starved Rock Lodge. And so this is all these people paid their $400. What they did is they figured out what's it going to cost to print and design and distribute. And then they divided that by the number of best ofs that are included. And so they did this whole brochure here. It's, once again, you're seeing it 2 panels at a time. But what was interesting is, and there's the back panel shows where they're at. What's interesting is a lady went up to them and said, well, I belong, and the Chamber of Commerce did this. She goes, I belong to the chamber and I think I'm just as good as they are. And you picked them over me. Politics got in the way. But after this brochure came out, that very same retail merchant said, you know what? That was the best $400 I never spent, because I didn't realize that when they went to my neighbor who's in this brochure and paid the $400, they also came into my shop. Even though go to Orlando for Disney, chances are we're going to go to Universal Studios and SeaWorld and Wildlife Kingdom and a bunch of other places. And so that's what you have to understand. So here's the other thing. So now we've done that. We've done that criteria. The other thing you should do is give them a certificate or a seal like TripAdvisor does, best of 2020, best of 2022. Or 2023, but give them recognition that they can put in their windows for that year. They're in your best of guide for that year. So you could do this with door stickers. You could do this with plaques. You could do this with certificates like the example you see here. And you give them you give them recognition on social media, on your website. But the goal is to have your merchants raise the bar so they can be included next year. Chances are somebody may fall off that list next year, or you may even expand your guide that next year. Alpena, Michigan did a great job, and that is this one. Now, here's what they did that was so cool. Not only did they do this brochure, and they even told how they selected these. They used me as the example for theirs so that they wouldn't have to pay the local politics and feel free to use what they did. And once again, this is their brochure. And so they created this. They have 10,000 in the city and 30,000 in the county. And they mailed one of these to every single household in the county, which was about 10,000. So they printed 20,000, 10,000 to give out locally, and 10,000 that would be mailed to every household. This is what it looks like. Now, in their case, this is everybody that's in there, the marketplace, you name it, right here, Myers Fashions, Stony Acres Winery. I mean, the Shipwreck Tours, Art in the Loft. Now, the Besser Museum right here was really running short on money. They are a best of. They couldn't afford the $400 or whatever it cost you. Your prices might be different in your situation. And so there was enough from everybody to cover them, so they were still included. I mean, how do you get money out of a trail system? So the other people have to carry the load for you promoting your best trail and things where there is no money there to market it. And so this is their brochure and what they did. And what's really cool about this is mailing this out to every single household. And I'm going to tell you how to do that in just a minute. So there's Alpena's. This one was done for Wausau, Wisconsin. I think it's really cool. When it's in a rack brochure, it's this way, but when you open it up, it's horizontal. And there's Welcome, the very best of their river district. And when they go through it, you know, you're going to see all these. And I'm just going to kind of go through the different pages they had. I think this is a very beautiful one. So as long as it fits in a rack holder, a brochure rack holder, you're good to go, 4-inch by 9-inch. But it could be a vertical format like this, and you just pick it up that way. And by the way, this one was actually stitched, which meant it had staples on the left side of it. And so you're seeing what they did in downtown Wausau. I think it's beautifully designed. This is one of my favorites for designs. And they promote all of these places. I mean, it's just great. And what they did is, even in the back, they even have, like here, festivals and events. They did a whole panel for festivals and events. And then they have a map of their river district on the back with all of these identified. Really cool. And so that brings me to the next one, fit your brand. So whatever you're about, you could call it that. At White Avenue or Old Strathcona in Edmonton, the best of White Avenue. It's where Edmonton goes to celebrate. So it looks like that. You know, in Vermilion, Alberta, they have a learning destination. So their best of guide is the honors list. It fits the teaching. In Kenora, Ontario, you know, the best Kenora, it's a boating destination. You know, so each one of these, Sulphur Springs, it's all about celebration, the best of Celebration City. It fits their brand. Devon, Alberta is a biking destination, so they call their best of guide Top Gear. Best of Stockton. I mean, these are all. St. Albert's, a gardening center. Chautauqua, it's a learning institution and a learning destination. Best of Sparks, Nevada. All of these are great ways to promote your very best ofs. It is one of the most important brochures you could crank out and have also for download. Now, when you distribute it, go to lodging establishments. And remember, they may not have a rack brochure that they put these in, but if somebody said, where's a good place to eat? That number one most asked question, they could pull out from underneath their counter and say, well, you know, here's the very best. In this case, it's Red Rock area in Iowa. But they say, here's our very best of it. And it's got a lot of our very best restaurants and everything in it. And so that's what's really cool. So you want them to have it. And that's why we didn't put any lodging in there. And then visitor information centers, of course, chambers of commerce, economic development offices, city halls, libraries, put them in visitor information kiosks, give them to real estate offices. When people move into an area, it's good for them to know what your best ofs are. You know, attractions, you can put them at trailheads, at campgrounds. Campgrounds is a great place for RVers to hand them out when somebody comes in registered. And then mail them to every household. And what you're going to do is you're going to include a card with it. That card needs to be 4x9. And I love this. Here's what it says on the card. The number one reason people travel is to visit friends and family. We hope you'll hang on to this brochure so that when friends and family, or when you host company, you will share with them the best of what Alpena or your town has to offer. After all, we believe that every dining room table should be a concierge desk. We've had people get these in the mail and come downtown and say, I got this in the mail. How long have you been here? And the merchant would go, 10 years. You know, they just didn't know what the locals had to offer. And when you distribute these, remember, before we go somewhere, we're using physical marketing materials, brochure, 32% of the time. But once we arrive, it jumps up to 81% of the time. And that is really important. So brochures are not dead. And then finally, every year, do this over. One might have gone out of business because of COVID or something, or things change, or they just change ownership and their ratings went way down. Or maybe we're just adding 2 more to the list because they've really raised their bar. But remember this, one bad apple can spoil the entire bunch. And just remember that. It's really important. And that is how to promote your very best ofs without getting politics in the way. It is a must do